This Saturday, 25th, the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, will be jetting back in the country with briefcase full of MOUs and agreements, looking at what he got from the United States of America. And I want to promise you that what the President will do is to attend the next church service of a political rally and try to explain to the nation why he spent over 200 million to fly to the US and what he has brought home. And I know that discussion will be in the public rallies. So we wait and we want to meet him there. We will understand. We will explain. Now in this podcast, there is a very critical part that I have been following, and that is what I want to ask, and that is what I want us to look at. What is the secret payback that Ruto is getting in respect to the military aids that are coming? Are they really military aids, or what is the hidden agenda behind it? Make sure you watch this podcast to the end, and we will delve more into this. I have had a very exclusive leak from really military experts who really understand and can make good interpretation of what Ruto got in terms of military aid. There is a big difference between an aid to construct a road and a difference between a partnership to construct a road to give you money for maintenance with an aid to the side of the military. Those two don't speak the same. They're two different sides of it. And that's where I'm going to explain so that you understand the difference. But before that, I asked you guys urgently that when I visited Mukuru Kwaruben for cloth donation that had been given by just one of the members of this channel, I was donating to some women and some families. And I was confronted with a reality there that families were staying outside in the cold after their houses were demolished under the guise of staying around the riparian land, and it was one of the ways that government was doing to avoid the flooding effects. So these families, despite of a promise of receiving some stipend from government to move, they did not receive any money. And so they were stranded, just still staying outside hizo places ilibomolewa. And I reached out to you guys that I want us to raise 100,000. I promised these families on Friday that I will go back on Monday morning and pay each one of them money so that they can find a way to move. I had agreed with them, and what they're saying, we just want to get that stipend and move out of this place. We'll get a place. So I promised them, and that is what we'll be doing for better part of this weekend. As I speak now, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Joseph, Helen, Rosemary, Rose, Farouk, Joseph, Festus. Quite amazing support. We are at 34,769. Today is Saturday. At what time? 11 a.m. when I'm shooting this video. 34,769. If you subtract 900, then that means our deficit is around 63,300. Yes, 63,300. That is our deficit. And I believe that if we do it today, Saturday and Sunday, on Monday morning we'll be able to get 100,000 so that we can go and support these families. And thank you very much for amazing support, people that have responded to this plea. I've always said we can always do something apart from just political complaints. In a society, this podcast, we can't see a problem then walk out. And that is why I've decided that we are going to do something for them. Now, this is the top level security engagement at the US, State Department of Defense, the Pentagon in Virginia in USA, President Ruto and Defense CS Aden Duale, and Kenya's security advisor, Ambassador Monica Juma, engaged with the US Secretary of Defense Lord Austin and his delegation. This is the top decision-making organ on matters security and in military. And President Ruto arrived in Pentagon, the US Defense Headquarters, accompanied by his delegation, received by the US Defense. And you will understand why in US, these decisions are made in Pentagon. Whatever military and security, that decision is made in Pentagon. That confirms to you why I was telling you that there is a difference. That is what my military expert was telling me. That there is a difference between a military aid and pesa ya kutengeneza barabara. Look at where that decision is making. It's not just a sole decision that Biden says, let it be. No. If it doesn't pass, everything has to go through this Pentagon. Amongst decisions that Biden cannot just make on himself, himself as a president, is this one. And from this, Kenya signed some defense MOUs and is also really captured, and that has really captured what we were promised. In the week of the US intent declaration, guys, I'll have to really do a lot of confirming verbatim because I really want to remain within the factual lines. In the wake of US intent declaration of Kenya as non-NATO ally, the subsequent announcement by President Biden that regimes support on military, including deliveries on aircrafts, the question that remains is, why Kenya? Why now? What are they getting back? And someone might ask, why getting back? Every aid we're seeing there, everything, look at, let me give you a good example. Look at that Mombasa, it's not military, but I want to compare so that you also see that even on this side, the question of what is the payback is very real. If you look at that expressway from Mombasa, it will be tolled. So at least there, through tolling.
Yesterday,
they will get back their money. The investor will get is one of the most dilapidated areas in terms of the security, in terms of our security infrastructure, security ranks. So, and I think there's a report by Maraga on this, some improvements that were needed to be done. And during the budget that is currently going on, nothing was set aside for this. So, and you can look at the others. I know someone will ask Kevin, but why are you narrowing on the military aspect while there are others that come? If you look at IBC, the aid on IBC governance, it's not something new, by the way. He's been doing that has been happening. Even the last general election, US pumped in money in IBC. So it's not like it's new. It will be used for civic education, awareness, this and that. That has been there. Now, on the other side of the aid that goes to NGOs and support for the health matters, that the US has been doing. And the president of the US has been, every president I think has been on top of this. The other new one I've seen is on, just on governance, there is some money that is supposed to go also to support investigative journalism so that they will expose matters on public interest. I think that is just on fight against corruption. I don't want to go there because I'll have another video looking at the other deals and what really is needed for them to materialize. So I will look at that. Make sure you keep on subscribing to this channel if you're not a subscriber, because we pride as one of the analysts that have exclusively and comprehensively looked into William Ruto's US tour. Now, the big question is here. What is the untold secret? And I want you to pay attention to this part. And I also want to get your feedback on this. What do you understand? What is your position? What do you think? What I'm going to look at here is what I've gotten from an expert who has been so much on top of military aspects, known as Chris. US military must find a home for thousands of its soldiers, and the military hardware in Africa. This is one of the greatest headaches currently happening, they're having. With China and Russia taking over the West Africa, there is that alliance of Sahel nations. The Sahel nations of Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Guinea. Just a short brief of what's happening there. Those countries, and let me use Burkina Faso as an example, they were the first one to start coup d'etat and when Ibrahim Traore took over. And Africa and US being a strong defender of democracy, they don't support coups. But the Russia bit has been supporting those coup heroes. Those who get power through coups, Russia has been supporting them. But US has been against it. Number two, they've been scrambled for those resources. And I think after the coup is done, the person who embraced the coup heroes are the ones that then are supposed to benefit. And France and US have really been facing hostility in the West. And because of that, they need to get an alternative to those military bases and structures. And these countries have shocked the US and other West powers, including France. So what's happening? They're not actually coming this side. What has been captured as a military aid is actually structures of relocating from West Africa to this other side. As we speak, the country with largest military bases is Djibouti. This is hosting French, is hosting US, I think it's also hosting Britain, if I'm not wrong, and they're also hosting Russia and Germany. So, and Germany I think is AirCom. And so, this is one of their worries. And that is why the decision to come to this side is and set up is to accommodate and move this other side. Why? They need to be around for making sure that they don't lose track of what's happening. And I'll explain. I will have to go for those glasses. Hey, I'll have to. In Burkina Faso, for example, their barracks were handed over to Russia even before they fully moved out. And that really annoyed the US. Because when their bases were taken over by Russia, now they were forced to leave their technologies there in the hands of Russia. And that was a big treasure that it was not even fine for them to leave behind. Recently in Niger and Chad, joined other African countries who have kicked out US forces out of their country. And so, where do the soldiers go? US forces in Niger will also be out by September. Let me take you to Chad. Chad did the elections in this month, I think last two weeks ago. And you know what happened? The person who won, the sitting president who also got it by I think a coup, it's called Idris someone, if I remember. The runner-up won against, the opposition leader won by 61%. And the incumbent took power by forcing himself, even after losing by 61%. The number two person who got 14% is the person who was declared the president. And what happened? It happened, what they did, they chased out the US. He chased out the US, the president even before then. And then it's also another show of taking over power through it. In the other Sahel nations, there have been some push for dummy elections to happen. I remember there have been calls for some democratic elections. Until now, Ibrahim Traore, you can see what he has done. You can see the way he has maintained his salary as the captain. He has increased the salary of civil servants by 50%. Civil servants, by members of cabinet and executive of state officials have been increased by 30%, reduced by 30%, and increased the salary of civil servants by 50%. So you can see the architecture of how things seem to have changed after it. And those elections, the dumb elections that we're making, have not really materialized. So that is the one thing that the country may not be told, and no one may really want to look at that. Now, and what confirms that? I want you to look at something very interesting. These details, the fresh details, are now exclusively revealing that information in place to set and establish that US-Kenya military base in Wajir, northeastern Kenya, in the coming months. And that can also create diplomatic flows in West Africa from between Kenya and other countries. But it's not that much of significance. That will not be much effect. And that is Wajir and the Manda base, where they are also setting up some pathways. They're also making some infrastructure development for the Manda Air Base. Even though Manda Air Base, even if you look at the history in the past, you realize that of those attacks that have been going on there, most of those who suffer are US citizens there. And if you look at the history of before 2012, before even Kenya went to Somali, most of the attacks, the attacks that were happening in the Manda area were actually affecting the US citizens. So part of cementing Kenya-US relations, 60 years of Kenya-US relations, is to establish US-Kenya military base in Kenya. Someone will ask me that, Kevin, what's wrong with that? And I want you to get it clearly. We are not saying that there is everything wrong with the US setting a military base. What we're simply saying is what is reported as aid is not necessarily aid. US themselves are also on the benefiting end. In this table, there is a lot of give and take, and US is also benefiting. And I cannot point out clearly that there are some, of course, it's not going to be rosy, but there are also some benefits of them setting up a military base, perhaps in Kenya. Remember, apart from that, there is an exchange program of Kenya Army, Kenya Navy, and Air Force also undergoing some training in the US. So there is a lot of some give and take, and that is why I'm saying it's a matter of not just aid. In military, in fact, he's saying in military it's not just aid. Look at the second bit. There is delivery of 16 US manufactured helicopters, 8 Huawei, and 8 MD-500 says, which will be delivered in phases until mid-2025, and also some 150 armored vehicles that is going to aid in the security front. This is the question. Much as it comes at a time, you will understand that this aid is coming at a time when Kenya's helicopters been falling from the sky. And you may want to understand why are Kenyan helicopters falling from the sky. Recently, a helicopter brought down the CDF, General Ogola. And so it will also be in the interest of the country for us to look at that. But I want to tie it with the other point that I think no one else has, it's not widely reported. But the US has also appointed and is announcing 7 advisors in Kenya to support Kenyan aviators. Also, why would the US deploy a strategic logistics advisor to Kenya's military of defense? So these advisors, there have been a question of, are they going to advise US government or Kenyan government? You will understand that even that is already, and that is what the analysts are saying, that is already an indication of them putting up even the personnel on the other end, tied up with the decision to set up a military base in Kenya. And I just want to digress a bit and also look at it like, if it is aviator support and advisory, I think this has also been necessitated by the falling helicopters from the sky. The fact that an helicopter brought down a CDF is a big thing to US. It's a big thing to US. Even themselves, I know where they were just finding out what exactly is. They will be so much interested to understand, even if not in public. And if there is a preliminary report that Ruto can secretly, if there's secret documents that Ruto can take to US, is the situation around the death of the CDF. What really caused that helicopter to go down? That can be on table. And I look at this as part of this is to ensure that they also control bit of this. And remember, another cost that is attached to this is the cost of maintenance. By then, let me tell you, on our aviation space, the problem is not availability of helicopters. If you go to our military areas, spaces, you'll understand there are so many aircrafts that are just in the hangars. Go to Wilson. There are so many dead aircrafts in the hangars, and they cannot fly because of maintenance and spare parts. It's a big thing. And who are the suppliers of spare parts? It's the US. Even the Kenyan Air Force, even the Kenyan, the president's jet, plane one, that could not fly because of maintenance. It's not well repaired. And the issues of the spare parts. Why? It has issues. So that is why when we are being given these aircrafts, and remember they're refurbished, not that they're brand new, by the way, we also need to say that. But refurbished doesn't mean something bad. That is also what the public needs to be told. The refurbished doesn't mean bad. This infrastructure, these helicopters, will also tie us to US because it is from US that we need to get those spare parts, and we'll be buying. But then we are going to create a good demand for those spare parts. The question has been on, when we have 16 aircrafts, you know what it means? What it means is that we must also expand the budget of maintenance. So look at, in the new financial year coming, in this budget, look at how the military budget will be, even though it will not be made public. Now, the other aspect I want us to look at is the designation of Kenya as non-NATO ally, which is a powerful symbol of close relationship with the US, with a country that shares, with a close relationship with the United States, a country that shares that. So what does it mean? I think first you need to understand. First, what you need to understand is what is NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So these are countries that have relationship with the US because they are in the North Atlantic side. So so non-ally means Kenya have that relationship but is not from that bracket. So what is the preference, or what are the benefits of being non-NATO ally? What it means then is any cooperation between US and Kenya will not be subjected to interrogation. For example, if this military aid was to be extended to a country that is not a member of NATO, then the Congress will have to ask many questions, and it will face a lot of hurdles. But on this one, it's also another, it's a software, it's some elevation, it's a status elevation to ensure for that free flow. And why? Because if they're going to establish a military base in Africa, in Kenya, then they need to find free flow aspects of their military aid, what is being captured as that military aid. So by the status, what that means that US government cannot adversely question key cooperation decisions the US makes with Kenya, including establishment of new bases and increased massive funding, because that is also what is on table. With the heavy presence in Kenya, they will take over the intelligence. infrastructure, and be able to control the nation as the satellite nation. Now, that's also that's the only question that that analysts have been raising, that they will try to remote control. Why the US faced hostility in the Sahel nation is an attempt to control, an attempt to always have a control. But on here, we may not have, there are no much competing interest. The only threat that was here is after China invested in the Horn of Africa, they are also joining the political fray. Remember, as we speak, there are 10 members of UDA party that are on 10-day benchmarking the US, in China, with the Communist Party in China. And that has also been tracked as one of the ways of them getting political influence. They're getting into democratic space, number one. And number two, they were also setting up a military infrastructure, not heavy, but they were also putting up a military infrastructure in Kenya as part of the part of the strategy to make sure that they secure their interests. Remember, China only have one military base in Djibouti, and that is the only one outside their country. So there have been a lot of this coming into this. And one thing I also understand here is, and I think that's also we need to put up clearly, that it's not exclusive that if US is setting up military bases here, then we are doomed. As people will want to put it. No, that is not the point. That's what the expert is telling me. It's not that there's going to be everything wrong with it. But again, there is nothing like everything is good with it. Because what the military guys are saying is, what the media and the public have been consuming is putting up the military aid in the same bracket with the road constructions, with this and that. So I think...
Yeah, so... And guys, I'm talking to you guys, how the club matters. Yes, so that is what we're going to do. You see, these women here, they are 50. Now, wengine, not they're 50, they are 10. We picked 10. So the only problem here is them moving out. Kwa sababu hizo nyumba zimebomolewa. Na nataka nione ile kitu kinawezekana sababu for around 9 or 10.
Just say 10.
Mimi kwa nataka twende tuone hapo. Then if Mungu akikubali, you give me Leonie, you give me 2 days. Then tunakubaliana, sitakupatia kwa mkono, naenda tunalipa. Sababu unaweza pata mama sema mimi naenda kuongeza stock, bado ubaki hapo. Mtu akuja aone huyu mtu mwenyekezea ndio pesa yeye akagisi haja hama. Sivyo? Yeah, so tutakubaliana. That is what we go. So guys, that is what we are going to do. This is very urgent. I've just felt this. Tunaenda kuona. Give me hata mtu mmoja 250,000. Tupatie hawa Monday, we come, we move them out, kila mtu aende kazi. Sivyo? Ah, asante.